Building towers to defend against overwhelming hordes of enemies. I remember tower defense minigames in Warcraft 3 like Gem TD, but the genre goes at least as far back as 1990's Rampart. And now it's one of the most popular genres of gaming. I'm not sure if we can survive these swarms though. How about you? Let's find out, and welcome to what 2024 has marching towards us. The first game in our list is Castle of Alchemists. Defend your castle in this fast-paced tower defense action hybrid game with very nice pixel art graphics. You play as an alchemically enhanced warrior called Bellator. You set traps, build towers, craft powerful weapons, and defend your home. The fate of the castle lies in your hands. You know, in this game, as an alchemically enhanced super soldier, you got a lot on your plate. You can fight the enemies waving in by yourself, but you're gonna need all your tools at your disposal if you're really going to be able to defend this castle. The enemies themselves are many and varied, so your defenses have to match. The key to success in this game is a synergy between your traps and abilities, and just trying to make things work together. For example, expanding the range of your electric turrets by making the electricity flow over your metal traps. Now, this game has been in early access since the middle of 2023 with a few but very positive reviews, as in 90+ positive reviews on Steam. And they do say that they want to fully release before the end of 2023, but we're approaching the end of the year, so, I'm just gonna say that it's a 2024 game for now. It is playable right now, of course, in early access, and it looks pretty good. The initial response is very positive, but it is a small sample size so far. The good news is, if you're a little on the fence about Castle of Alchemists, there is a free demo, so just try it and see if you like it. That's always the easiest thing to do. But yeah, if you're looking for a new kind of tower defense game, then this one seems promising. And then we have Orcs. This is supposedly a new take on the tower defense genre, blending mechanics of deck building and tabletop games to create a unique experience. You grow your castle, expand your domain, and take a stand against hordes of green-skinned attackers. So in this game, you gotta manage your gold wisely, growing your kingdom with castles, farms, and villages, all the while scouting for vaults with powerful rewards inside. There's 2 different factions to choose from, 4 enemy bosses, a progression system, a roguelike style campaign, 30 different enemies, and you can share your stats, so this is a bit of a competition with the other players of the game. Now, the card system might be okay for some of you, but I do know a lot of people don't like card systems in-game, but it seems to work well with the idea of orcs. This one also has been in early access since the end of 2022, so it's been about a year plus now. But it's got a decent number of Steam reviews with mostly positive rating above the 70% mark. So not the most liked game out there, but it's still pretty good. Now, the initial release window was supposed to be about a year from the start of early access, but we're past that. So as we move into 2024, you can check out Orcs and see if it's something that you will enjoy. Because it's been in early access, there's plenty of footage out there, so have a look. Moving on, it's Cataclismo. The Cataclismo has left us broken. Now you must construct fortresses and defend against waves of horrors. In this mix of tower defense and real-time strategy, you lead an expedition beyond the gates of the last city and reclaim mist-shrouded ruins as you rebuild humanity stone by stone. This one is all about building up your stronghold and defending against, various monsters. A foul swarm, really. But it's not just about building and defending. You're gonna have to gather resources, manage your stockpiles, research technologies. So it is kind of an RTS as well, but it's all about Like, it all leads up to setting up your defenses and defeating these enemies once they start coming for you. There will be creative mode and also a medieval fantasy campaign for you to play through. So Cataclismo is set for a Q2 2024 release, but there is, at the time of recording, a free demo you can check out right now, which is always nice to see. These demos before release, even any kind of early access release, is always a great time for developers to gather feedback, so that's probably what they're looking for. So if you're intrigued by what you're seeing, try the demo and let the developers know how you want the game to change or improve for release in 2024. For a very different kind of tower defense game, we have Steel Republic Rail Defender, initialized to SRRD. This is a hybrid of strategy, railroad logistics, resource gathering, base building, and tower defense, which is a very strange combination. The focus is all about logistics and the railway, I guess. And you begin with limited supplies and you need to allocate rolling stock and locomotives to gather resources and building up your defensive positions. Deployable turrets, mobile outposts, forward bases, all of that contribute to your defenses, along with combat locomotives and combat rail cars, all set in a retro-historical setting. Fictional, but mid-20th century Cold War era-ish. You know, think diesel. Generally, this one does seem interesting. At the very least, it is different from anything else on this list, and sort of shows how the tower defense genre has evolved over the years. I mean, back in the day, tower defense was pretty much just build towers, build up a maze of towers, or you have a maze and you build towers and you destroy waves of incoming enemies. But the sort of hunker down and defend genre, I guess you could call it, is sort of evolving like many of the other genres out there, where it's not quite just one thing anymore. They are trying to innovate, and some of them work better than others, and Steel Republic Rail Defender is innovating, but I suppose we'll have to wait until, well, they're saying end of 2023 release, but it could easily be delayed into 2024, so we'll see how Steel Republic Rail Defender, whether its innovations are actually a success. Speaking of a success, Thronefall, a minimalist game about building and defending your little kingdom. It doesn't have to sell itself all that much because this game is already in early access since the end of 2023, and it was an immediate success with thousands of overwhelmingly positive reviews. It's at like 97% positive at the time of recording, so this is the safest bet of all the tower defense games today. Thronefall has multiple playable levels where you fight gripping battles and defend against waves of enemies, but this is all about not being a headache and not being so time consuming. So it's sort of a digestible tower defense base building kind of game, which apparently is what a lot of people really wanted. You have to strike a balance between economy and defense. Do you want more archers, thicker walls, another mill? Basically, you're trying to grow as big as possible while not sacrificing too many defenses so you'll actually survive until the next day. So as I mentioned, this game has been in early access for just a little bit at the time of recording, and they were planning for 6 to 12 months of early access before release. So it is supposed to be a 2024 release, but there's two things that make early access games go way longer than the initial scope. It's either people don't like it, or people really like it. And with an overwhelmingly positive rating, it's very easy for a game like Thronefall to just go all the way out and say, okay, well, people love this, let's add this, let's add this, let's add this, let's just expand the game so much more because we just didn't expect to make this much money so quickly. So they'll have the budget to do a lot of things now, and we'll see if they stick to their initial scope for a full release and then maybe work on expansions or DLC or bonus content, or if they just say, oh well, screw the initial release window, let's just have this be a 7-year development and make it the best tower defense game of all time, or something like that. It's hard to guess which way Thronefall will go, but either way, it's in early access and people really love it. So if you've been wanting to jump into something new and haven't tried Thronefall, then out of this list, you can have the most confidence in this one right now. But there's still so much more to see. Hey, now that you're a bit into the list, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so it would be greatly appreciated if you can like the video. Alright, next game. Legendary Hoplite. A combination of action RPG and tower defense. You slay monsters, find weapons, upgrade your armies, defend your base, and prevent humanity from extinction at the hands of monsters from Greek mythology and ancient tribes. All you have to do is don't let them cross the gate. Aesthetics alone set this one apart, because it looks really nice. Like, the art in Legendary Hoplite has that ancient mythological Greek aesthetic, which is, well, I say it's an ancient mythological Greek aesthetic. It's an art style that is often used for ancient mythological Greek stuff. And I think it works really well here. The game is all about defending a gate, so you have these phalanxes and units and troops and all sorts of things fighting off these waves of monsters and enemies, and you get to upgrade your gear over 100 levels, 60 types of monsters to fight, multiple bosses, items to collect, and there's a story with secrets to uncover. So this is not just a tower defense game, it's mixing in some action RPG elements, including the story. Overall, very intriguing. And right now, it's just coming soon, so we're not too sure when this game will release, but there is a free demo to check out, and that's always nice. So this might release sooner than expected or sometime into 2024. It's a little unclear, but if you want to try it and keep an eye on it, then you can try the free demo for Legendary Hoplite. Moving on to some pixel art, Mob Factory. This one is a tower defense and automation game for, well, what they say is the lazy adventurer. Smelt down enemy loot into turrets and factories to automate an ever-expanding dungeon from the comfort of your tower. By the sounds of things, this is essentially Factorio but tower defense, which I think is a very good idea, actually. It's a mixing in the tower defense genre, but with an automated dungeon. As you kill the mobs, they drop loot, and then you want to collect that loot, and that's your resources, which you use to expand and improve your dungeon. So it's like factory conveyor belt management plus tower defense, which is all really cool. And you basically play Melvin the Wizard, who not only expands your maze of death, but also to raise new islands, to find new things to build and new enemies. Loosely targeting an end of 2023 release, which is not always confirmed, there is a free demo for you to check out. Again, don't you just love that so many of these games have free demos to check out even before any kind of release? You can just try these games, like, for free, like the days of old. It's so nice that there's so many free demos. And Mob Factory has a free demo, so if you're intrigued by the concept or what you're seeing on screen, then go ahead and give it a whirl. Alright, this next one, I'm not entirely sure if it counts as a tower defense game. You let me know. It's Infection Free Zone. You take charge of a group of survivors from your city, you choose a base of operations, and then you rebuild and readapt the buildings around you to create a self-sustaining settlement. And then when night falls, you defend that zone from the infected. So it's sort of like some of these other games where you do build up a base and survive waves of enemies, but I don't know, genres these days are there's such thin lines and vague areas between them that it's hard to categorize them so clearly. But the main point of this list is basically games that you build up in a single spot and you defend that location against swarms of enemies. So this kinda counts, and I'm gonna put it here. Interestingly, you can play any city in the world using real geographical data. That means this game takes data from what I assume Google Maps is using, and it populates the world in-game with real-world data like that, which is very cool. You can survive in your hometown or where you live right now. You can make it a challenge where you survive in the house you're currently living in. So that's really cool to see. And it should be noted that you're not just fighting the infected zombies, you are also fighting the living. Rival factions and rival people are always a threat in these zombie apocalypse worlds. And good news once again, there is a free demo for Infection Free Zone as well, so you can go ahead and check this out at your leisure. Now, going back to castles, we've got QubiQuest Castle Craft, a game where players build huge castles in an ancient war-torn world, and you defend them against hordes of enemies in chaotic siege battles of epic proportions. Castlecraft is a unique blend of voxel, sandbox, action, and horde defense, which does have that colorful, fantasy-ish, blocky aesthetic, but I don't know, there's something about this game that looks really nice. Like visually, it's just really pleasant to look at, which I think is a huge selling point. Like it's somehow blocky and realistic at the same time, with a fantasy vibe. I don't know, it's just nice. So in this game, you plan and construct your castle. You launch a flourishing artisan economy within your walls. You raise an army of brave defenders to fight against waves of enemies, which get larger and more dangerous. Interestingly, it says it's inspired by evolution, as in biological evolution, where enemies mutate, where the more successful ones will be more numerous in the next wave. So there's sort of a natural selection with your enemies. So if you keep failing against one type of enemy, that enemy will then become more numerous next time. Which sort of gives the sense that, oh, the enemy AI is actually learning what your weaknesses are and trying to take advantage of it, which I think is a very clever way to handle the AI. It also should be praised that the game is said to fully support modding. There should be a good modding scene for this game, and that could spawn all kinds of things moving forward. So, QubiQuest Castlecraft looks really cool. It's just coming soon right now, and I really do want to see more of how this one turns out. Going more sci-fi and more first-person shooter, it's SENTRY, an action defense FPS, where you defend your spaceship against a relentless alien threat. You set up traps, turrets, and use environmental destruction to repel invading hordes, and engage the enemy in fast-paced FPS action across dynamic single-player or a co-op campaign. Now, this is the direction of tower defense games, which is seemingly more popular as time goes on, where it's combining it with FPS mechanics. And I really did think, should I put this in an FPS list or a shooter list? But the focus of this game is setting up your defenses and defending against waves of enemies. So essentially it is a tower defense game. It's just also a shooter game, secondarily. Now it does sound really cool that there is a co-op campaign as well, because this sort of game in co-op with a friend sounds like a really fun time, as long as the core gameplay turns out fun as well. And I kind of like the sort of low poly-ish kind of visuals they've got going on here. It does make things very clear, but it's not too blocky or low res or anything like that. So it still looks good. Things are just a little clearer. And typically speaking, you know, you can't have these swarm games with phenomenal graphics because, you know, there's just so many enemies and so many things going on that your computer will melt if you have so much stuff on the screen, all in HD high fidelity. So SENTRY is looking very promising. It's just coming soon for now, but it is planning to release into early access first for up to a year. So we're looking at maybe an early access release in 2024, and then maybe it develops through the year. What could be a 2025 release if they stick to their schedule. Now I know I said what I said about the graphics in the last game, but then we have Hostile Mars, which looks very nice actually. Optimizing these games must be a headache. Hostile Mars is a factory building game focused on combat. You explore an open world and discover new tech to unlock powerful weapons and structures. You create efficient supply chains using delivery bots, you salvage destroyed enemies for resources, and you design your base to withstand increasing waves of enemies. So this sort of feels like Mob Factory, but instead of fantasy and pixel art, it's sci-fi and realistic graphics. So instead of Factorio plus tower defense, Hostile Mars feels like Satisfactory plus tower defense. And you do face giant waves of enemies in this one. At least what they're showing in the trailer anyway. You get these gigantic guns and you can upgrade them to insane levels of firepower, and you will be fighting thousands of alien-like enemies. As you customize and upgrade turrets, collect materials, upgrade your base, strategically place walls, traps, and guns, all on the Martian surface. So the game looks great, and the graphics are realistic, but keep in mind this is still just trailers we've seen, and it does look like gameplay, but it's very easy to have a more optimized trailer. And also you can actually see in the trailer that the frames start dropping, and this is when they have their own internal setup and they're optimizing to just one computer. So the main concern with Hostile Mars is, can everyone's computer actually run this without their computers melting? You can see some tricks in the trailer itself where the frame rate is actually a little laggy, but they speed up the footage so it looks smooth, but it is sped up footage. So that didn't get past me. Hostile Mars might be a great game, but let's see if they can actually have it a running game whenever it releases, hopefully sometime over the next year. Then for a game that looks very, very promising, at least based on what we've seen so far. It's called Outpost Infinity Siege. You command a mobile outpost and take a proto-slag gun to venture deep into the Signet surveillance off-limit area. Off-limit for a reason, because look at what's coming to kill you. You collect unique weapon units, amp up the firepower of your outpost that fights with you, and this is another first-person shooter, base-building, tower defense kind of game. Just based on the trailer, it looks phenomenal, but it is just a trailer. And the idea of building this outpost and controlling these mechs and building like a building game from a top-down perspective, but then also going first person to shoot things by yourself, it just looks like it's got everything anyone could ever want in a action tower defense kind of game. But the trailers might be a little too good to be true, it's hard to tell. And having spelling errors in your Steam description is not a sign of confidence, and at the time of recording this video, there are spelling errors. But if this game could just be what it's promising to be, I think a lot of people will love this game. It's just, I'm not 100% convinced that Outpost Infinity Siege will be what it is in the trailers. But if it is, this could be not just one of the best tower defense games moving forward, it could just be a really good game in general. If, and that's the main point, if. There you have it. Press the like button and use the GOG referral link down below to support videos like this one. Thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members who really keep this channel running and these videos being made. If you want to stay in the know for another genre, go to the next list video linked on the screen, as I'm sure tower defense fans like yourself would not want to miss all the strategy and base building games in the other lists. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that next video.